Welcome back. We continue live with the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. Just talked about the Steelers and their win, 20-15. Now we're switching to the Penguins, who are also in action tonight, and they lost. They got absolutely manhandled again in the second half of back-to-back. That's for them. In those games, they've given up 27 goals. You can't blame this on Antti Niemi because it was Matt Murray in goal. He got yanked in favor of Casey DeSmith. So Jason Mackey, what's the problem in these back-to-back games? There were a lot of turnovers, a lot of sloppy play. Is it of concern to you?
How much time do we have, Pomp? There are plenty of concerns here. Mike Sullivan 2 nights ago talked about a commitment level. I think that's very much a concern. Chris Letang has not looked good. The goaltending has been mediocre, whether it's been Matt Murray in this most recent one or Antti Niemi before. Puck management has been atrocious. They're getting no depth scoring. Honestly, you know what this looks like, Pomp? It looks like a team that's playing October hockey after winning the past 2 Stanley Cups. So is there a major amount of concern? No, I think they'll be just fine. But they're going to drive their coach absolutely crazy if they don't figure it out soon.
Yeah, I'm concerned about the back-to-backs only because they have so many more of them to go, and they have to figure out a way to get around this bugaboo which exists about playing well during them. I do think that the coach made a mistake today by not going to Casey DeSmith to start this game. I thought that Murray, got dinged last night late, and obviously he's had a heavy workload. I think the team might have been more focused and on its P's and Q's, knowing that it was starting for the first time in front of a goaltender that hadn't performed in the NHL yet, and maybe that would have kept them a little bit more focused going into this game. But like Jason said, there's a lot of blame to spread around, not just on the goalie, not just on the coach, not just on Malkin and Letang. I'd also say that the moves that the general manager made this offseason haven't worked out very well to start this season either.
I think the one thing to Jason's point is it's October hockey, and this Penguins team has won the last 2 Stanley Cups. And I know that doesn't forgive every sin, but I've seen enough in some of the games they've played where it seems like they've been really paying attention and really trying to win, that they still have that ability to really turn it on. And I would expect there'll be a point where they're going to run off a bunch of wins in a row, and we're not going to really worry about back-to-backs.
If this festers for weeks, it would be a point of concern. I don't think it will. This is a roster that is as good as any in the NHL. And, we're talking about a couple games, a couple back-to-backs. And look, Antti Niemi was terrible. He really was. Let's call a spade a spade.
Well, that was one of his off-season acquisitions, too.
Yeah, and it blew up in Jim Rutherford's face. And I'll get to this more, but credit to him for admitting that and moving on.
No, I mean, I don't think we're still talking about the problems of this level of concern in, April. But right now, I think these are the reasons why we've seen them be so erratic and have October look like October. I don't think you just chalk it up and blow it off and say, well, that's the reason why. It's just because of where they are on the calendar.
Paul Zeise, let me ask you about Riley Sheahan, the new acquisition. Jim Rutherford has made a habit of bringing in guys that he thinks he can rekindle. He's done it. There are some that he's brought in, it hasn't worked that way, like David Perron. What's your take on him? And so far, he's been okay, but if you're looking for scoring, I don't think you're going to look to him to be a guy who's going to fill the net. Is it all right for him not to fill the net? Can he be effective in the third line?
Well, again, the reason they brought him in was to help the secondary, the secondary scoring on this team, and so that was a big void that needed to be filled before the season, and I don't know that they really filled it. They got a guy, they got a body. I don't think he's terrible, but I don't know that he actually helps them in the area they needed to be helped.
Yeah, I'll be a little concerned offensively if Malkin or Crosby were to go down, because I think Bonino had this reputation, this ability to step up offensively when they needed to elevate his role when one of those guys was out to a second-line level. I don't think Sheahan has that kind of offensive ability, and even Bonino only showed it at spurts late in seasons when he was called upon to bring it.
And Matt Cullen as well. It's one of the things I talked about earlier. If we're going to voice concerns over where the Penguins are this season, they're just not getting enough offense from the bottom 6. And yes, that is one reason why Jim Rutherford brought Riley Sheahan in. He needs to score. They need to get more offense from that position. Greg McKegg just doesn't give them enough, and even Carter Rounding, when he gets healthy, doesn't give them enough. So at this point, if I'm looking at the Penguins and what they might do at the trade deadline, I know it's crazy early, but I would still be looking to address the bottom 6 down the middle.
Yeah, I think Jim Rutherford's work's really never done. There's always something that you got to be worried about, even if you are 2-time defending Stanley Cup champs. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to go around the horn for this week's Smooth Moves, brought to you by Pittsburgh's largest supplier of the smoothest granite, marble, and quartz countertops, Armina Stone. So, smooth moves for you, Jason Mackey. It could be anything.
Yep, I kind of alluded to it there to make one of my points, but my smooth move is Jim Rutherford moving on from Antti Niemi and admitting that this move was a complete failure. They lucked out by Florida picking up Niemi, but it stunk. But you know what? It was only 3 starts worth of stink, so you move on.
I'm going to go with Jose Altuve, a guy who's my height, who's hitting balls that far all October. He is my mini god. I love Jose Altuve. Smooth move of the week.
I'm going to go with J.T. Barrett. I mean, this is a guy I didn't think was that good of a quarterback, to be honest, and I thought he was the Achilles heel for Ohio State, but good Lord, last night he put on a clinic and obviously was as clutch as he needed to be when they needed to win the game.
My smooth move goes to Quadri Henderson, who's 1 away from tying an all-time NCAA record for most returns for touchdowns. Had a 75-yarder yesterday in front of not many people, so you may not have seen it, but it was 75 yards. It was a thing of beauty. That's number 7 in his career. So those are the smooth moves provided to you tonight by Armina Stone, who features Pittsburgh's largest indoor stone gallery of granite and marble countertops imported from all over the world to give you the smoothest countertops in the area. Score a touchdown with new granite countertops from Armina Stone. Penn State, how smooth will their ride down the rankings be? We'll talk about that when we come back.